most messed up way your parents hurt you. My father made me injure myself in the same ways he'd been hurt throughout his life, so I could never claim to understand suffering without experiencing his exact wounds. My father collected his scars like trophies, running his fingers over each one while telling their stories for the millionth time. Broken nose from a bar fight, burnt palm from his drunk father's cigarette, dislocated shoulder from high school football. He'd built his entire identity around being a survivor, a tough guy who'd been through hell and lived to lecture about it. My mom left when I was 8 because she got tired of hearing that her problems didn't matter since she'd never been really hurt. After she left, Dad decided I was getting too soft without a woman babying me, and real life was going to destroy me if I didn't toughen up. When I was 13 and complained about a bully at school, Dad laughed in my face. You think mean words are pain? Let me show you real pain. He pulled out a notebook I'd never seen before, filled with detailed descriptions of every injury he'd ever received. Before you graduate high school, you're going to experience every single one of these. Then you'll understand what actual suffering feels like. The first entry was from when he was 7. Slammed hand in car door, lost fingernail. He looked at my perfect hands with disgust. We'll start there. Can't have you thinking a paper cut is the end of the world. The lessons started immediately. Dad would come home from work, check his notebook, and announce which injury I'd be recreating that week. He made it seem educational, like he was teaching me resilience. Today you learn why you always check before closing a door, he'd say, positioning my finger in the door frame. The anticipation was almost worse than the pain. I'd spend days knowing what was coming, watching him set up scenarios to match his childhood exactly. He had rules to make it fair. I had to be the same age he was for each injury, and they had to happen the same way. When I was 14, he dislocated my shoulder because that's when his coach had done it to him. He made me join the softball team just so it would happen naturally during practice. He'd stand on the sidelines telling the coach to push me harder until something snapped. The notebook became my calendar of doom. Burn from a stove at 15, dog bite at 16, broken ribs from a fall at 17. He documented each one with photos, comparing my injuries to his to make sure they matched. If my bruises weren't dark enough or my cuts weren't deep enough, we'd have to try again. You're not getting the full experience, he'd say, genuinely believing he was helping me. I started wearing long sleeves and making up stories about being clumsy, but teachers were beginning to notice the pattern. I couldn't take it anymore when I saw the entry for age 18, shattered kneecap and motorcycle accident. He'd already bought a bike for me to crash, so I did something that would ruin his whole system. I went to his precious notebook and added my own entry in red ink. Age 17, watched my father get arrested for child abuse. Then I walked into the police station with a notebook and years of medical records. The officer's face went white as he flipped through pages of planned injuries with corresponding hospital visits. He's trying to teach me about pain, I explained, showing them the schedule of future injuries. They asked if I had somewhere safe to stay, and I gave them my mom's number. Dad was at work, probably thinking about which bone to break next. When they arrested him at the construction site in front of all his tough guy buddies, Dad went ballistic when he realized I'd turned him in. From jail, he called every relative we had, telling them I was a weak, ungrateful daughter who couldn't handle a little tough love. His brothers, who were basically carbon copies of my father, started showing up at Mom's house demanding I recant my statement. This is how our family builds character, Uncle Tom said, showing off his own matching scars like they were medals of honor. They filed for custody, claiming Mom was raising me soft and I needed to finish my education. Dad sent letters detailing all the injuries I still needed to experience, highlighting how I'd never understand him without completing the list. His lawyer argued in court that controlled injuries in a loving home were better than the random violence I'd face in the real world unprepared. Some of Dad's construction buddies even testified that his tough love techniques had made him the reliable workers they were today. The judge stopped the proceedings when she noticed something no one else had caught. My medical records showed my injuries were actually worse than Dad's original wounds, like he'd been trying to outdo his own pain through me. This isn't about teaching resilience, she said. This is about a man who can't stand the thought of anyone, even his daughter, suffering less than he did. Dad got 8 years and a restraining order.